I'm Breandax,
And I'm T.
and we're going to listen to not just some music, we're going to listen to some artistry.
We're going to listen to the music.
The music.
The music. You've been talking to us about it. We've been talking to us about it.
It's wild to be talking so much about it when we know so little about it in actuality.
And what is it? It is Vanisher Horizon Scraper by Quadeca, which we're like a week late on. Sorry. Scheduling real life is a thing.
No, I got sick with the flu. I actually still slightly have aches from that, but
we actually have an invisible pain in between us. This is totally COVID safe.
This is AI. I don't exist.
This is the release. This is the one that everyone's been talking about. We got onto Quadeca a few months ago. You fucking fell in.
My life literally changed. I love that album so much, and I've listened to it just on a personal. We listen to so much music, obviously, on this show, and while I have like so much appreciation for every album we've ever listened to, and I just love being able to get a little bit of a glimpse into the minds of the artists behind it. I don't necessarily walk away from all of these albums being like, this is my personal cup of tea, and I'm going to listen to death on my personal listening time on this album. But with Quadeca,
I really liked both Scrapyard and Sorry for Haunting You. Didn't mean to haunt you, but you really you connected really hard with it.
Yeah, it hit something on the inside.
Yeah, and I hear that people are really kind of glomming onto this one as well. Like the hype is real.
I would say that I identify as a quadrant.
Quandingle?
Quadrilateral.
Condale Dingle? Yeah, so I mean, you know, it's a lot of talk about this artist. Why don't we listen? All right, track 1 on Vanisher Horizon Scraper is No Questions Asked. Let's do it. This is a little like Middle Eastern, but also not really.
It's very folky.
Yeah. There's little tinges of fuzz as well. There's like a shaker too. Instrumentation is so like three-dimensional. Bass as We're back. We're back on the hype train.
What a way to kick off an album, hey?
Yeah, and even within what we know about Quadeca's like performance before, his the way he structures his songs, this is giving us new stuff. Still showing off his technique and his tendencies to write beautiful pieces, but we're getting a new angle. We're getting a new array of instruments. We're getting a new kind of bit of inspiration in terms of like cultural influence as well.
I think we're getting again, and just thinking back to I Didn't Mean to Haunt You. There was a lot. I remember thinking there was a lot of like this orchestral composition kind of feeling that came through a lot of the tracks on there, especially in the earlier part of the album. This is such a great example of that skill set really being flexed. What I love about this though was it again gave it's the beginning of an album. You don't know where your audience has been and what context they're in, and you kind of want to pull them into all the same kind of space before you then dive deeper into the album, right?
Yeah.
And so I often think about, is it giving me this sense of arrival, and where are we arriving? Here I'm feeling, it was literally feeling like in my mind as if like it was the opening sequence of some kind of like film piece, right? And you're just traversing, but because of the instrumentation you're saying there, it was picking up on like different cultural nods. At the beginning, we were having chord progressions, which is very different to Western music, right? And so that's throwing up images there of maybe the Middle East. Is it something that's Eastern based? But I think he intentionally kept it not very specific to a particular culture. So then you could just hear reflections in whatever you would be familiar with, you know? Then later I was getting like these broad sweeping plains. I'm like, is this the opening sequence of a Lion King type thing? You know, it's the savannah,
A grand
etc.
open expanse.
Throughout the whole thing, we have this rhythm, though, coming from a lot of the percussive elements, and it feels like we're moving forward. We're traversing through lands and mountains and all kinds of plains, going somewhere. I don't know where that somewhere is.
Yeah, we intentionally know nothing about the context behind Vanisher Horizon Scraper,
Mhm.
but just the title of the album and the way that this song makes me feel and the place it puts me in feels very appropriate to Vanish a Horizon Scraper. Also, we know that there's a visual component to this album as well. We're keeping it audio only for now. It does seem like Quadeca's really leaning into that, painting a visual image through audible textures. Also, we'll say, I don't know if you've heard of the game Near Automata before. One of my favorite games has a soundtrack that this reminds me of. Lots of like hand instruments, lots of build, lots of humming, lots of like crooning and like multi-layered vocals that aren't necessarily saying things. They might be saying little hints of words, but it's a journey through audio. And I'm reminded of that in the most pleasant way through this track.
So track 2 is called Wrong War.
Waging war.
Waging War.
What war is right?
Just play.
Oh, the little detuning.
When the motion stops and I can't ignore who am I when the light is low and there's no horizon. I cannot be gone. It's you. Who am I to my mind? I
love this strong color. It's so new for Quadeca, but it makes so much sense. This is good song. I can't get over it. That was a sneaky good. We didn't mention this on the first track, but there is a second. There's a distinct second vocalist throughout the first two tracks of this album, and this is, I think, this person named Oleka singing alongside Quadeca in the chorus.
In what I actually want to call in the first, like it's like side A, you know how like there's often like a 2-in-1 song?
Yeah.
This felt like one of those songs, and then
Yeah.
and it wasn't even 50-50. I want to say it was like maybe 70% of the way through that we then turned into part 2. But yes, in part 1 we had this other vocalist as well.
Yeah, and when we flipped to part 2, I think I commented on it. We had like a little bit of a build that I didn't recognize as a build, but when it came to a head and we entered part 2, and then we had the faster delivery from Quadeca, it just like all came together for me, and it just made so much sense. And it gave me that like audible frisson effect or whatever it's called, where you get like the tingle in your spine when you hear something that's like satisfying. 2 tracks in, and I'm just so impressed. And I'm impressed because this is giving me the artistry we got in Didn't Mean to Haunt You, but it's not rehashing at all. It's brand new.
What were you impressed by?
The instrumental palette, the use of texture, especially in the percussion, where we're getting little taps, little diegetic and non-diegetic sounds. We're getting hand drums. We're getting some like drum rolls from like a marching drum or whatever. We're getting all of this interwoven into one kind of piece, and it's so many different sources, but it's coming together in like a very complete piece, and it's just leaving me very audibly satisfied.
I am actually starting to see a little bit of not so much of a storyline yet, but I definitely see that we're centered with a protagonist. Where the protagonist is the singer here, so Quadeca. Having Oleka on the track, it felt a little bit like, at first I was like, is this a call and response? But it felt a little bit conversational to me. And once that kind of clicked, then I started to think, okay, well, now actually it's maybe two slightly different perspectives. And that then changes how I start to absorb the lyrics. There's a lot of like ocean ship sailing imagery at the beginning. And I'm like, okay, with the title being Waging War, this imagery coming through is very like naval, not necessarily navy, but like ships on the high seas kind of thing, which I think is a fantastic like image to use, because there is so much symbology that you can play with water, with waves, with staying alive or fighting the battles.
Shout out to One Piece.
And here, the references that you were mentioning before about self, about there's a lot of talking about who am I, exploring identity, also then looking like who am I to that open door when I'm going towards, who am I to the blinking light that's been keeping score. A little bit amongst there's also then a reference to a closing door as well. I'm like, are we talking about life? Are we talking about then our relationship with self, and mental health is often, and maybe I'm also leveraging a bit of the context of just how Quadeca also used imagery in I Didn't Mean to Haunt You as well, and sort of explore these complicated things that can go on within yourself and that relationship both with you and also then with the context of your life and the context of things outside as well. And I think that really builds, you talk about this build in part 2 that comes kind of sort of was surprising. I think it's surprising audibly because it wasn't a typical build where you just have a continuous sequence of like rising chords, like you're just going up in key changes or going up in note steps or getting louder. I think it was surprising because the sound came in waves, and every wave was a little bit higher pitched, but there were breaks in between oh my God, I'm saying waves. And there's the ocean terminology. Okay.
Again, shout out to One Piece, most popular anime for a reason.
To Quadeca. I'm just like, the genius. I didn't even realize that.
I want to see where this world takes us.
So track 3, Ruin My Life.
He brought the guitar back just for me.
You're going back in time. It's all a dream, but somewhere coastal, and it's a small town with white bricks and cobblestone.
Something about the Dolmio grin as well.
All of the time, the world here to help. Darkness and eyes, and with his back turned, God hung up his sign. So I might have to ruin mine. They're watching you set us out past the rocks that shows the potato skin keeps watching. With his back turned, I might have to ruin mine.
You're like a little bit of a theremin or something. Background.
I might have to ruin mine.
not British, is he?
If you didn't know any better and you didn't really pay attention to the lyrics, which a lot of people sort of enjoy music that way, you just play it and you just feel it, you don't think too deeply. You could be mistaken that this song was a beautiful little reflective piece, right? I think musically, we were remarking before, right? I'm on the coast somewhere. It's a cute little, I want to say Sardinian town for some reason. We were somewhere in the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
But
I think we're in the fantasy Mediterranean.
definitely the figurative this is a figurative.
Because you can't
mind
place
journey.
it exactly culturally, but you can kind of
Yeah.
ballpark it. Yeah.
But definitely giving the sense of I think there is this connection between like a lot of childhoods and origin stories. You're from the small little town from wherever you grew up, whatever that looked like. That was also emphasized with the use of, and I love how Quadeca uses like warbling and a detuning.
Yeah.
And that gives a sense of either saying that something is not quite the here and now and reality. But in this instance, I think it's giving that sense of nostalgia and we're going a flashback. We're reflecting on our past. And that makes a lot of sense then when we do then actually pay attention to the lyrics. When I was young, I was so certain. And all of these reflections about like being young and hopeful and having all these dreams. And then as the song progresses, I feel like it's exploring life is not that ideal dream reality, and it's actually a lot more tough than we might have optimistically felt when we first set out into, especially like early adulthood, and you're so full of like can do anything attitude.
Yeah, I like the mix of, setting out for adventure, like you mentioned, the lace up your boots right where you left off, where we're not quite at the start of a story, but we're maybe at a new beginning or a next phase or whatever. But that's kind of coupled with a cynicism, and it's coupled with a contrast between best and worst. So towards the end of the track or middle of the track, we had some lyrics that were like picked first on the losing team. So like picked first, losing team. Everything but in between. Starman, sinking dream. And it just really it really delivered on like a sense of purgatory, on a sense of dissatisfaction, but kind of mediocrity, like a net mediocrity. Whereas in the hero's story, you usually get, triumph or rise from the ashes. Here we get a rise and fall and rise and fall and rise and fall and rise and fall and so forth.
I saw it slightly differently. The line that got me thinking differently to what you were referring to there was because when his back turned, God hung up his sign, which means it sounds like, this person has had their God, and it's God with a capital G, so I can infer it's the Christian God, who looks over you, who looks after you. If you do the good things and you're good, you adhere to all of the values and you make the good decisions in life, God will look after you. But here it's saying like God has turned his back, right? Which is a sign of like abandonment.
Yeah, God's
He's
sick of
hanging
it.
up his sign. I don't know what the sign is literally, but to me that feels like there's a resignation.
He's out of office. He's not dealing with you. He's
put
off.
up the close sign. The office is closed. And so I might have to ruin my life to make it mine. And this is now starting to touch on, that term you taught me, human condition, right? And so maybe when you're trying so hard to appease this higher being and do the good things and live a good life, and then they abandon you, and now you're in like, it's a bad place and bad things are happening. Like, but I wasn't also doing genuine things genuinely for myself. And so how can I now have ownership over my life and make my life mine, even if that means it's not that like great things don't happen to me. For example, I got picked first. That's agency. That's like I did something. It was for the losing team, but I made it my own.
And I have also realized that wasn't British Quadeca. That was
It was
that
a different
was
person.
Yes, that was the feature Harry Wilkinson. Shout out to Harry Wilkinson. You are your own person and not just British Quadeca. Track 4, Godstained. We talked about God. Now we're stained. A man after my own heart.
Fiberglass solution. There's a message on your skin. Feel missing from the land you couldn't stay. I can see your history. Something that I should say. God's word. I thought you knew.
The shaker in the hand.
No matter how much I feel like the 1998, I thought you knew.
It's like indie folk neo R&B. It's an interesting combo when it works.
I thought you knew. Coming back home will be a little bit slower.
I need to talk about the instrumentation and the structure on this one because I remarked this felt like it felt kind of neo R&B. It felt like kind of like a softer, like a Frank Ocean or like a Tyler track where he's really leaning on the R&B influence, the jazz influence, and it kind of comes together really groovy. But we've still got the same instrumental array that we've had throughout the album so far. The fast, gentle, but really textured, soft hand drumming, the drum rolls, the like shifting kind of like shaker sounds, and it just felt so unique to me. Like these are all things that I know about and I'm familiar with in isolation, but together, like it's like a different kind of groove that I really enjoyed.
The groove gives me this sense of like, look, caveat. I've never been to Europe, so all of my impressions is through like media references, right? But I'm like, oh, we're somewhere. Is this Spain? Is this like we're having a little, you know? It was giving me, and again, very coastal again kind of vibes.
I think what's doing that is the guitar.
It's definitely the guitar. And what I found with the slow but fast, where that's coming from, is the tempo is so fast that to sing along to the lyrics and the melody to sing along is at halftime compared to the instrumentation. But the instrumentation, why it feels this, it's like you're moving slowly but with a lot of like emotion and energy, almost like sensually, right? Is because even though it has that fast tempo, the what instruments deliver it is all very like percussive but soft. So like a rattler, it's strumming, it's, you know, it's very like, it's giving this like internal, the energy is coming from like internal energy, even though your body might be moving technically at half speed and your melody and your lyrics is moving at half speed relative to the music there. And I feel like Quadeca is singing to something. I don't know what that something is. I can't wrap my head around the fiberglass solution reference that comes up several times, but I feel like it's describing whatever this object is. But this object is being personified.
Yeah.
And he's having this relation, he's singing to this object, and they're having a relationship. Like this object impacts him and it's impacting his perspective, right?
Yeah. I also kind of got I did get like a not another person necessarily vibe, but I also thought maybe it's a place, maybe it's the textures and the materials of a place. Because we're talking about, again, vast expanses. We're talking about back home, the land, the history, 1,000 miles, etc. And I also like the use of the word Godstained, reference back to God from previous track.
Yeah, I like that tie-in.
Where we were kind of using God as like a negative backdrop. In this case, you know, we still acknowledge what we've said in the previous track, but this is more of a universal experience. We are both affected by the God that we believe in, society believes in, whatever. It's just we share a universal experience stained by the same negatives or positives or whatever that, you know, God brings upon.
I'm curious about this date, and maybe this is where your music knowledge and knowledge of artists would be shed some light to this. December something 1998. Does that make in context of anything about about like Quadeca's actual age or
I mean, I
what he's
wouldn't
experienced in his life?
I wouldn't be surprised if that was ballpark his birth year, just like by knowing when he came up in the scene and all of that. But I'm not 100% sure. That's kind of a stab in the dark. This might be something where maybe it's something that's directly referenced in like the visual accompaniment of the album that we
Right.
aren't
Oh
super
yeah,
privy to.
that's right.
Yeah. Let's go on to the next one. At a time like this. It's a gorgeous island. It's a gorgeous song too.
Just to preface, if you're picking up the energy that we're putting down, it's Friday evening after work, so excuse the delirium. It's a double delirium. It's a delirium of like that, and then like of this.
Yeah, and this
So-
is also a bit of a dream state in itself, to be honest. The world building, the placement, the
Well, a very different kind of world, and I noted that there was quite a shift in the music throughout the track as well. So what I thought was really cool was I want to say this sound effect that stayed with us throughout the track felt like a record going in reverse, with nondescript, like it wasn't like a particular musical track that was being played in reverse. It was just like we're going back there, right? And the chords at the beginning, so tumultuous.
yeah, and the beat as well, so glitchy. Like we got that signature Quadeca glitch at the start.
I literally felt like you're being tossed in a storm, right? I think we're being sort of set in that frame of mind with all of these references to the ocean and to sailing and things like that. But it felt like I'm being like washed about. Quadeca's protagonist voice in this feels very realistic though, and like is very self-aware of what's going on around him and what's going on and how that connects to like his position, and is very like accepting and matter of the fact. If I go, but I don't want to go, but if it happens, it happens. But it'd be really bad timing if it does, because there's other stuff to do. Then we have the switch. And it's very subtle. It's not sudden. It's not like a part 1, part 2 kind of vibe. But I noticed it because you said, "Oh, I like this beat." I'm like, "Oh, we have a beat. We have a regular
Yeah.
beat that we can really like sink into the rhythm of."
Yeah, and interestingly, compared to the previous tracks in the album, it's not a beat that clearly uses an analog drum, a physical drum, a hand drum, whatever. It's a collection of impacts and a collection of textures. And just throughout the album so far, and in this song, I really like the shift sound in a beat, like a sh. I think it's really cleverly used and it's very textural. But yeah, go on.
I thought its purpose, and it was a very classic beat as well, that with that syncopated catch is very familiar to, regardless of like, and it's used in all kinds of places, and it's a very like I like this beat, like it's a beat that you naturally click with. And once again, I think this is such a great example of how Quadeca uses like instrumentation to make you feel and experience what the lyrics are saying.
Perfect summation of that is the line, "I was born in the wrong with a puzzle to solve." So still capturing the tumultuous nature and the conflict and the back and forth, but there's a movement.
Yes.
It's a movement forward and upwards.
It's also not, I think it's recognizing, it's a term that I've learned recently, like not to speak in deficit when you're talking about someone who's experiencing something. So it's not that they are lacking the ability, it's that they are doing like, it's them within this situation and they're responding to that situation, right? He was born and this puzzle was dumped on him. And so having to like then deal with that, right? So...
Well, let's see how he deals with it in the next track. Next up is Monday. Garfield's least favorite day of the week. He's really loving the violin, like fiddle sound in this album.
There's traditions I try just to see what it'll hold. Darling, don't you give up on a Monday. I wanna loosen my grip on the runway. I wanna get there with you now. Next time I'll take you the whole way.
This is beautiful.
It's that time of the year where there's smoke in my breath. You might have took it the wrong way. Losing my grip. Don't you give up on a Monday. I wanna tell you I want you. You might have took it the wrong way.
That song put a smile on my face. Like, even just from the instrumentation, straight away. Twinkly piano. I got a bright, yet still like curious and adventurous kind of vibe from it. And it fits in so well. I'm just glad to get more of this kind of flavor from Quadeca, because it really shows me a lot of range from what we've heard in like the contemplative, moody, sometimes, positive, but very much kind of somber tracks we heard in the last album.
Well, I'm also feeling that there's been a much larger use of acoustic instruments and instruments in general, right?
He went to Guitar Center and he just bought one of everything.
Well, we did get that a lot of like diverse, real instruments in I Didn't Mean to Haunt You, but it was very wonderfully interwoven with then synths and all the electronic things. I don't know what they're called. Plugins. I got there in and I was just like, wait, it's the same thing that you use on a browser.
On this episode of Just Learned Music Production.
And so here, you get a bit that folky vibe, you get that storytelling, it's, this, how, bards who would tell stories and you would have meaning from those stories. All of those things got pulled up instantly through this twinkling type instrumentation. It's very clear that Quadeca is talking to someone in the most warm and affectionate manner possible. I have a feeling he's talking to his younger self, because we've been exploring a lot of like relationship with life, the beginning and end of life, taking control of your life, being affected by things through life, alcohol, for example, their mental health was also referenced previously. So here, when I think he's saying like, darling, don't you give up on a Monday, where Monday is often seen as the most difficult day of the week because you've just
and also the start of the week, because the rest of it's ahead, right?
I'm like, it didn't make sense to me that he's now suddenly counseling someone else rather than, and he would be counseling, because there hasn't been another character so far, and he's counseling either his current self, but I have a feeling like maybe his past or younger self, of like, just enjoy life. And also coming to this realization that he wants to be living this life. Before it was like, I want to live this life, but I need to make it my own. I don't have ownership over it. But if I have ownership over it, it means I'm going to make my life worse. And there was that, and then having that, like, maybe I regret this tension. And now this feels very like in a place of acceptance and peace.
And I wonder if those two perspectives or the two personas, the past and the current self, come to a head in the last lyric in the outro. Whereas we were saying before, I want to get there with you now. This time I'll take you the long way. We end on, I want to get there with you now. I went and took it the long way. So I wonder if both are kind of coming to a head and converging. Dancing without moving, something you do when you're, I guess, happy?
Sleep paralysis.
or sleep paralysis demons? Let's hear it. I'm just imagining the visual
I
accompaniment.
had this feeling since I was the age of 2. I might as well
Quadeca
do my
just
dance
enough
without a clue.
the whole way through.
So I can step
In like
away
a
from it
forest.
like, excuse you. I'm turning my mind. Every time I miss you, I get cut off. She wasn't the one, she was just the one off. Swear it was fine with me last. The waves feel like mine. I'm turning my mind. I wanna see you get low with the setting sun. I wanna spin you back at that vessel, be a vessel. See what you got. Any second, he's gonna try. The way.
I can't really pin the reason why right now. I can't really articulate why, but this song just gives me a feeling of like mania. Like, wow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, just going out there, we're doing all the things and whoa.
I mean, like, dance is an expression of overwhelming energy and feeling and intent, and you could see it as manic in some ways.
Well, I think like the music is very like, it's got this up beat, and Quadeca employs this like rhythm, this like double, this up type beat at the end of many lines. And then the lyrics are also just very like full of energy, and it stays at that energy the entire time. The lyrics behind it are very like unshackled by burdens and expectations of the world and society, right? The saying is like, dance like no one can see you, right? I had this feeling since I was the age of 2 too. I might as well do my dance without a clue.
And this felt like the most danceable track as well. So we're doing all of this carefree kind of movement and intent along to a dancey beat, hence, constant reference back to dance and movement.
Well, the dancing without moving was interesting because before we started the track, I'm like, well, that sounds obviously like a contradiction and probably done purposely, but that maybe it's like you want to dance, but you're being restrained, which would be a negative. But then it turned out, I think, to actually be quite beautiful symbology. So like Quadeca's there. I'm going to imagine him on his little boat in the middle of the ocean because that's where so many of the other songs have kind of placed us. So I'm like, we're probably still there. And it's just like nighttime, clear sky, full moon, Quadeca doing his little dance because he's just loving life.
He's throwing down the Macarena like a champ.
Yeah, and just moving his body in whatever weird angles that feels correct and right. And that's being a symbol of like doing things in life. And he's just being like looking up at this vast universe in front of him, the night sky, the stars and the moon, which when you're on Earth don't look like they're moving. We know in reality with science they are moving because, well, anyway, physics, but they look like they're not moving. But these heavenly bodies, these gigantic things are reflecting his joy.
The sky is reflecting us, much like, shout out to Porter Robinson, the cliches reflect us because we are beautiful. And I like the last line in there from our good friend Harry Wilkinson, friend of the show, friend of the album. There's a man on the horizon, paradise is just behind him, he turns around and disappears. So like a constant movement, constant shifting, constant questioning. Maybe paradise is where he was, but if he turns around, he doesn't see it. So he's constantly moving ahead. We'll find out in the next song.
What's the next?
That's why? That doesn't work in a sentence. Anyway, next song. That's why.
They switched some shit around when I was 16. Switched me around. My hair's that's still some shit that keeps me pure if I just let it flow. That's why I gotta tap it while I'm sinking just to let them know. So that's why. Might end up in my shop cause you were walking through it. That's why. Like the yellow light, treat it like a brand. That's why. Backing out my truth, agree's best and set me afloat. It's bearing me afloat. That's why. Every stranger that I pass is wearing my clothes. That's why. That's fine. Alright. It sounds like if I woke up in that other body.
You want to do this, or would you look for anything else?
That's why. We don't get any better than this. That's why. Don't get any from the oven, but it only comes to touch. Once a sore spot, that's a sore. Every mirror in my life makes another plot. That's why.
All right.
I'm wondering, we listened to the Kevin Abstract Project Blush a little while back, and I feel like I got a lot of acoustic Quadeca on like the last track of that album. I don't think I'm misremembering it. I think I'm correct that it was a very kind of like acoustic Quadeca led like ballady song. And I wonder if that was like the first kind of steps into getting more experimental or experimenting more with ballad type songs and acoustic instrumentation. Because obviously, heavy use of acoustic guitar in this album, and it's right back here in the song.
For me, what was being conjured up was like, you know, these like old classic Hollywood films, and they were like so like glittering stars, you know, shining there on this like beautiful screen with these like strong stories that always ended up like with the bad guy losing, and they were very idealized, right? The lyrics then is like kind of calling out things that we're told and then the realities that happen, or maybe there are like lies that we tell ourselves when we're in denial. The more that it goes through, I think it was around halfway through the song, that cinema type genre music starts warping, and almost it feels like it's melting off, like the passing of time, and it's some like weird alternative reality, and everything just starts like melting like in an impressionist kind of way.
The clock melting off the wall
Yeah, and
kind of
it's like,
thing.
is that like reality is actually like the facade is melting away to then reveal the reality. And the genre I felt like shifts into, I wanted to be like, is this giving me a bit rock opera vibes? It's like the strong guitars got in there. They were a lot more like forceful. I mean, not in a violent way, but like a, you know, very strong kind sort of like strumming in there as this like beautiful idealized image melts away.
And it's interesting how as we got to the reality, I got a sense, a duality, a bit of a sense of contentment and a bit of like, this is how it is. I've accepted things. Life is still good. Life is all right. But also maybe a little bit of like hammering that in so hard that it becomes like almost meta and like a little bit cynical. I don't know if that's what he was going for, but I could see that as well, because we were just really hammering in that things are all right kind of thing, right?
I think I can see that cynicism. Think my compass lies to me because I keep putting it on the spot. It's like, and I chuckled at that image, just like imagining like some kind of like Beauty and the Beast type like compass who's like come to life. And you're like, which direction is this? And it's like, and just make something up on the spot. And you're like, but you're a compass. You just, you know what I mean? And it'll be like southwest. And you're like, we are, but no. You're like, but it's clearly, why did you make that up? You know, anyway, it was a really cute image in my head.
I mean, it's not completely out of the realm of possibility in this like kind of fantasy-ish world that we've built, right? And that we're voyaging through.
But again, it finishes that last line in a very like with realism it don't get better. It don't get any better than this life. So
Because there is no alternative, right? What are you going to do? Live a different life?
as far as we know,
Quadeca time travel album coming out next year.
I would love that.
Quadeca
One that
does a
explores
Doctor
time
Who
travel.
rock opera.
If anyone could do it.
Well,
he
we
would
did
be able to
speak
do it.
about Quadeca being on a ship throughout this album, and the next one is I Dream About Sinking. Be careful, Quadeca, on your ship. Let's hear it. Genius informs me this song is an instrumental. Hear the guitar peeking in ever so gently.
And that concludes our meditation moment.
Roll up your mats and place them by the lockers.
I had an inkling when I saw the title, dreaming of
I dream about sinking.
dream about sinking, and I'm like, it's not just going to be face value, potentially, where sinking is like something to fear. I'm like, it's going to somehow be flipped for sure, right? And that was like the most peaceful piece of music that I'm like, like mindfulness meditation, beautiful instrument. Like, I'm like, get the Sydney Symph on that track. Like, stick me in the opera house, and because the
Good venue for
strings-
Quadeca, actually. If you come to Australia anytime
someone
soon.
book Quadeca for Vivid. Someone book Quadeca for. You know what? You don't need to come through a festival. You just come headliner by yourself.
I will buy every ticket on pre-sale and then resell them because I need the money. That song probably goes off like on the visual version of the album. There's probably some crazy shit that happens that we don't know about.
Or maybe it doesn't, and it's incredibly peaceful, because the image that I was getting in my head is like, okay, Quadeca's on a ship in the middle of the ocean, right? We've just been dancing in some state of dress beneath the full moon, reflecting our joy. We've done that after having been through violent, tumultuous situations. We've done that after talking about escaping from everything else. And then what happens after there's a storm tossing you about in the ocean? If you sink and you're inside the water, it's peaceful.
There's calm in the depths. Yeah, maybe we're experiencing sinking not as drowning, but as immersion.
Yes.
Well, let's see where we go in natural causes. Quadeca, your guitar needs tuning.
Somebody's after
Fast pace, really. So soon.
Somebody died this morning.
Such an interesting track, because I feel like in this track as well, the instrumentation and the song structure, along with the lyrics that are very much repeated throughout the song, but the two kind of come together and take us on a bit of a journey within a very repetitive song. I'm getting a vision or an image of like almost post-apocalypse, where something's clearly happened. There's a paranoia. If we're to take it at face value, everyone's gone, seemingly of natural causes. But instrumentally, nature's kind of going on. Like we're getting the twinkles and all of that from the instrumentation that we've gotten throughout the album, even though there's an eerie change in the beat, there's a glitch here and there, and then there's like an eerie turn overall in the melody and the chord structure towards the end.
So starting with, there was a gong at the beginning, like temple, which is weird because I was raised Catholic and we don't do that. But I'm just like, some of my ancestors, most of my ancestors, we've only been Catholic for like 3 generations. Colonialism, wild. Gong, read a temple, right? And, or, natural causes as a phrase that's normally referring to how someone has died. The use of the overlapping vocals, and it wasn't like a nice call and response, I sing, you sing. They were overlapping. If you're using some nice good headphones, they were in all kinds of different spaces around me as well, interweaving. Quadeca used a lot of like falsetto and singing this very high, eerie kind of pitch. And it wasn't just like for the whole song. It was clearly intentional, because then there are other parts where then he sang in his normal chest voice. And I started to think about that. I'm like, oh, there's actually certain lyrics is all falsetto. And it's the description of when people were dying. It's doing the overlapping eerie voices. We're getting this the twinkling, but in like discordant type harmonies in the instrumentation that you're talking about. Some of it sounded like, I don't know if they were, but it sounded like wind chimes made out of wood or pipe instruments. And again, just building on this like temple funeral rite kind of space. And it's unusual. One person died on Monday. By Thursday, everyone's died, with no clear cause of like like murder or anything like that. It's all natural causes, but they all died, and that's very, very strange, right? So something's going on. That's then tied in with the lyrics where Quadeca is quite literally saying, something is chasing me and I cannot see what this thing is. And he sings it in his chest voice. And so this is now like, I think, okay, describing or alluding to something supernatural's going on, and then also showing like the character is back, and that's what the character is saying. I noticed he started to use, I don't know if it's fuzz or whether it was just like static noises or things like that, but we're adding that like kind of texture in there, which felt like things were starting to like, and the image in my head was like, now the image is like flaking off like ash does from a charred piece of wood. Do you know what I mean?
You know what it reminded me of? Maybe like a busted walkie-talkie, like a
yeah,
like the failing tools of civilization after everything's gone away. Could be wrong, but I'm sure the video like clears this up. Where do you go from there?
Well, no, actually, that is quite easily answered. You go through to Thunderrr.
So don't mind me. Yeah, moves a million ways to show me what I mean. You bring that out of me. You bring that out of me. I said, stay a thunder. And let me tell you
I have had this thought about Quadeca before, where I'm like, oh, I would love for Quadeca to like find commercial success and mainstream success, because I want so many more people to listen to Quadeca. but at the same time, I don't want him to not be Quadeca and make Quadeca music. And anyway, this track, and I'm like, with like you do with a slight with a remix club version, I think would fucking slap.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and I can see all of them like kids in the club just like shouting these lyrics because the energy is so there, and just with the beat and how like dark and like gritty it gets. I'm like, oh, this is, and I just want like massive subwoofer, and this is where I love the mixing in this to listen to. But if I was in a club, then you just like ramp up all of the lower ends, so like those subwoofers are just like reverberating and shaking every joint and bone inside your body while you're screaming like,
Bring that out of me.
bring that out of me.
Interesting we have this after the world's all died. Little last thing from me. We've had a lot of kind of almost flamenco leaning guitar throughout the album, like the like fast strumming, like
Wait,
almost
what
Spanish
kind of
sounding.
guitar again?
Flamenco.
Make the sound. Keep going.
I'm not making that sound again. You only get that once.
Oh no, they can hear it as many times as they want.
You're not allowed to rewind the video. The reason I mentioned that is because this one almost came through more like a shamisen, like the Japanese stringed instrument with a like big pick. Next up we have the great Bakunawa featuring our good friend
Danny Brown.
Danny Brown.
I know who this is.
You know who
now.
Danny Brown is. Seems like one of the constant collaborators for Quadeca.
He doesn't know who I am, but that's okay.
Well, he'll find out through this video if you send it enough times to his inbox.
Trying to get you out your circle every day, get away. Take you to them deep waters, no one wavy as me. I'm the beast of the night, ain't no when the people singing harmony, I gotta retreat. Bamboo on my tree, but I still gotta eat. So I just gotta creep, hope they don't peep.
With that snake in the rear view, I'm faded down here too. Tell me when's the last time we see one of these? Moon man fishing when he leaves out the sea. Every angle another gold mine. Maybe the passageway was a matinee. Premature with the cabinet for the letter too. I put bang till it pierced the wall. Comes down, it's falling right. It's the end of the world if you call it right. With open arms, I welcome you.
I think you were onto something before, when you're like post-apocalypse.
Yeah.
I feel like we're at the end of days. We've had this walkie-talkie sound effect make a couple of appearances now. And when all more sophisticated telecommunications go down, what do you have? You have CB radio,
Radio frequencies, yep.
right? End of days. Something unseen, something that we can't see has killed everyone else, and I'm left behind and I'm running from it. After that, remember like, oh, why did we jump from those two tracks? I'm like, maybe it's like when something so, when something so drastic has happened to you as a form of escapism, you just like go full bent the other way, right? As a form of release and also escapism. And so
Yeah.
maybe that's where that bad bitch track came from. It was just like, everyone's dead. Fuck this shit.
Just gonna let it all out.
Yeah. And I'm just going to like rampage and do whatever I want in response to that.
It's
So when we,
interesting that you mentioned the end of days again, though, because I
Mhm.
got a combination of two things from this track. I got like a folk tale of like a beast, and like it lurks, it blah
Yep.
blah blah, all of that, telling you about what it does and what its like hallmark signs are and all that, and then interwoven into that is like a modern day, like talking about Apple Pay. They don't accept Apple Pay here, so like bringing a perspective from another time, from a previous time, from the before times or something, and kind of weaving those along together, so you get a very like interesting combination of beast, primal, folktale, and the failing of technology or the jarring lack of technology where you are at this point in time?
I know from listening to the last album, when Quadeca has another artist on a track, that's meaning something, is providing a different perspective and or a different character. And so here we had Danny Brown. And so Danny Brown's lyrics were all speaking, it sounds like, from the perspective of this God.
Danny Brown is God confirmed
Yes.
today on Just Heard.
100%. You know, and how just, and really describes the level of power and specifically destructive power that he holds. When Quadeca then comes in, it's Quadeca's character who is then facing this god, running away from, and it's a god where that's like, it's going to drag you to the underworld kind of god, right? And I feel like that's really driven home with this repetition about snake in the rear view. Snake is a common symbol for the devil in a Christian God context. In your rear view, so like the devil or God, you know, whatever God who's going to pull you to the underworld is like chasing after you. And then there's that very subtle variation to the lyrics at the end where there's a snake in your rear view, there's a snake, I'm in your rear view. And I'm just thinking, is this the God has caught up, or are we actually our own devil
Yeah.
who pulls us, and we pull ourselves to the underworld?
I was taken back to earlier in the album when we were talking about, you know, we're all God-stained and we're kind of rejecting the guidance or the expectations that God's put in front of us to live our own lives as well. So I wonder if this is full circle on that.
So our second last
Second last track, number 13, Forgone.
Do you like what you see? Do you love forever?
This feels a bit musical theatre. I feel like I'm in a soap opera, like intro. Just with the chord progression.
I see the child that she once was. Oh, let me down slowly and easy. There's a tripping me. You're the conclusion to everyone, and I can't return as the same. All I can do.
You remarked while we were listening that it sounded like you were listening to a
Musical theatre.
musical. I'm like, it does have a very theatrical vibe to it, and just the way that it was composed and those chords, and then the way he was singing it, I'm like, oh, it's after the big battle. It's Les Mis, right? And it's that scene where they all get like shot down at like the barricade or whatever, and then one person emerges, and they have made it through whatever big issue they had to face, and they've been beaten and there's been losses, but they're still standing, and then they're like hopeful towards the future.
I couldn't tell if it was a particular person, if it was us from a different time that set us up to endure in this moment, or just a feeling. But I also get a bit of a looking back and understanding and appreciating and longing a little bit.
I would say longing more so like fondly, like
Yeah.
nostalgic, or like, yeah, like tenderly looking back. As far as I've been feeling, we haven't had another person really in this story. It's been very much about relationship with self and then with life. and navigating through that. Also, well, versus the world. The world has been in there, like people of the world, but not like she. And so I'm like, well, it's not like Quadeca talking to another part of himself from another era or anything like that. Yeah.
I was wondering, like, are we talking about the grand she, like the matron, like the motherly figure? Are we talking about the opposite of the masculine? I don't know.
Well, because
Stretches.
in isolation, if I was just to look at this song and it wasn't in context of the album, I'd be like, oh, it's talking about a partner or something like that, right? And you've been there with me through it all. You've been there to look after me. But in context of the album, I'm just like, oh, is this now a new person? Is if I have wider background knowledge of like Quadeca's personal life, would this make more sense?
I have a feeling this is probably one where once you listen back through it a couple of times, you pick up on nods or like little breadcrumbs from elsewhere and you kind of build a picture. Really quick, and like this is going to be so off base and like no one else is going to hear this, but I was like, this reminds me of a ballad that the Killers would make.
Oh, it was giving me Chariots of Fire in some points, which is
Okay.
very different to Killers, a different era. Much
Yeah.
older
The part
era.
that gave me Killers was Quadeca's kind of like almost compressed sounding voice. Very much
Mm.
sounded like Brendan Flowers from the Killers. But I'm also a big Killers fan, so I could just be reaching in and stretching for that one.
Interesting note, it ends with the sounds of storm clouds, thunder clouds. Not necessarily ocean, but I'm just like, because of all of the oceanography. That just came out. I'm like, it's storm clouds over the ocean.
I wonder what
So-
that has to do with Casper. And I have a feeling it's probably not The Ghost, which is the name of the final track, Casper. This one's featuring Maruja or Maruja, and I have a note on that artist after we wrap the song.
The answers I found overexposed. You were born with a lot to correct. That preys on men who prey like animals. And now it takes form and takes flight. It can take you anywhere you like. Like the sweat in the hands of a man who has never forgiven himself. And the answers I so desperately crave. At least I know something you want. In a bigger picture where I extend beyond the frame, your world will end at home. The captain stands alone, arms to the depths reflect his mind. His time is getting near, counting every moment. Wish away the minutes, waves as big as mountains. Strong embrace or let it go. A solace inside courage, intuition always known, but the dawn is so consuming. The only life he's shown is the heavens open wide.
That was so cool. We've been referring to Harry Wilkinson throughout the album. Harry Wilkinson is from the band Maruja. I don't know how they're pronounced. And why I wanted to make a note on this was because I very randomly heard a song by Maruja on my like Spotify, Apple Music recommended, and I was so intrigued because it was such a strange, experimental, yet like groovy and like impactful song. And I looked it up and it was Maria. And I'm so interested that they're a collaborator on this album. And they have an album coming out in the next couple of months as well, which is what the song was from. So very timely. I think that Harry from Maria and his like storytelling in this track was so effective, so impactful, and I think appropriate for the way this album's gone. This very much to me is like the tale of a man at sea, a sailor at sea, against the currents, against the waves, against the unknown, against, the beast. And then kind of like wrapping a lot of the things that we touched on throughout the album in like a metaphoric climax.
I think it's very, at first I thought it was very interesting to have the last song of your album heavily featuring and more or less only featuring another artist and another band.
Only a bit of Quadeca in the intro, and that's it.
Correct. But I think now that we have just heard
Vanisher Horizon Scraper.
Horizon Scraper by Quadeca, it really is like a summary of this entire tale that we've seen unfold. And the only way that we can do that is by having a different voice do that summary, because it's not a self-reflection by the Quadeca character. It is a narrator's summary of what has happened.
Yeah, and it reminds me of the times throughout the album where we did hear little snippets of Harry, you know, with like little outros or whatever. I wonder if that was leading up to this ultimate retelling or recounting, and we just kind of got little vignettes of it to prime
I think
us.
so. I think that's very much what the intention has been here. Quadeca's intro, I think, really prefaces the recap well, but also gives us a little bit of closure on the Quadeca character. Harry recounts the Quadeca was placed into this chaos, and that the challenges that he faced was the world pressing those things upon him. That then leads to then wanting to lash out, to then try and gain control and ownership over his own life. But in doing so, then did things that might have ruined, right, the life. There's another reference to alcohol in there. This bottle symbol, I'm just very curious about, and I feel like there's something that we haven't picked up on earlier that maybe is more than just like there's a dual image in there.
This will keep giving as you go back to it, I think.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I've heard references like other artists, etc., using like, you know, trying to find answers in a bottle, and that's a reference to like turning to something like alcohol to escape from whatever is going on. But because we've had so much like sea, ship, sailor symbology, I wonder if it's like message in a bottle as well.
And just as we get to that end, I kind of reacted to the tempo suddenly shifting and like picking up. And I feel like that entire stretch at the end musically was like a race to the climax, like a path to the finish line, to the ultimate end. And I just really liked how we were moving and moving and moving and moving and moving, and then we get that explosive end, and then we almost get like consumed by what I interpreted as like digital waves, or like an overwhelming like effect, or like consuming aura, and you know, depending on how you read it, it could be like a return to modern life with like the fuzz and the very digital sounding, you know, things in there. It could just be like a destruction, I don't know, but I think it just ended so nicely and so energetically and appropriately for me. Like it wasn't like a contemplative, like coming to terms, like mellow kumbaya kind of like peaceful ending. It was a crash hot, chaotic, ugly, climactic ending. And sometimes that's appropriate.
Now that we've listened to the two albums, and you've also listened to, was it Scrapyard?
Collection of
and I know that's an EP and slightly different than like an album as a body of work. But how do you feel? Do they have a connecting context, especially between the albums? Yeah, sort of like, how do you place them?
I feel like for this album and for Didn't Mean to Haunt You, we're embodying characters, we're exploring points of view, and we're also talking about surrounds and impact on environment, impact on others. In this one versus Didn't Mean to Haunt You, we're building a lot more, I think. And I think it's appropriate for the kind of story that we're telling. In Scrapyard, I get more sonic experimentation and I get more dabbling, but less of a through line. More just kind of like Quadeca putting some stuff out there and giving us little tastes.
Which was the exact remark that led the comment section to be like, go listen to the album.
And I did, and you were right.
So, origin story. Thank you,
Yeah.
everyone.
There we go. I think this one for me, like between this and Didn't Mean to Haunt You, it's really going to depend on what you connect with and when it hits you and what you're looking for.
I mean, of course, they both are exploring an individual navigating and having to deal with difficult things. I didn't mean to haunt you, around like mental health, depression, suicide, and the relationship with like the person who's left behind. And then here, obviously, it's like with the world and what we've just talked about.
Adventure,
But
whimsy.
do you think it's the same character, or do you think they're just different? They're different.
I feel like it's different, but I feel like both are exploring experiences that, a real person, maybe even the same person, if we were to take these in abstract, would go through.
Yeah. My thoughts were going towards the same.
Well, that was Vanisher Horizon Scraper.
Which on the title of the album, I'm just like, okay, Vanisher Horizon, nautical things. I get that, but I'm almost like, this sounds like something you might name a ship.
The Horizon Scraper, Vanisher.
The Horizon Scraper, it's the ship that has the ability to go so far from land that you can go to the horizon and go along the horizon, scrape it.
Quadeca, if you want to start a yacht company, you've got the name already.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us for this one. It was a long, long ride, but hopefully you guys enjoyed the ride along with us. Very, very long-winded way to say that. Engage if you like, or don't. I don't know.
And the Quadecans, we'll see in the comments.
Yeah, Quadecans, we'll see you in the comments. Let us know if we should do
I look forward to our chat.
Maruja. I'm kind of intrigued by them.
Well, no, I'm like, yeah, cool. Like, let us what you know, because I do like what you guys think about. But if based on that track and then based on you hearing that other track, I'm just like, this already sounds like something to add to the Trello board.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll maybe see you for that. But otherwise, we'll see you for other stuff. So stick around.